The envelope in Susan Morrison's hands contained 50 years of questions. She sat in the blue chair on The Tonight Show, clutching DNA test results that had arrived just 2 days earlier. Jimmy Fallon had no idea he was about to witness a family reunion that would defy every statistical probability. It started as a simple segment about people discovering their heritage through genetic testing. Susan had agreed to open her results live on television because she'd been searching for family her entire life. At 50, after decades of dead ends, this felt like her last chance to find answers. The Tonight Show audience was buzzing with anticipation. Jimmy had explained the concept during his monologue: real people opening real DNA results for the first time. The producers thought it would be heartwarming television about ancestry and heritage. "So Susan," Jimmy began with his characteristic warmth, "tell us about your search." She adjusted her glasses nervously, the sealed envelope trembling in her hands. "I was left at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago 50 years ago tomorrow." Her voice was steady, despite her obvious nervousness. No note, no name, no family medical history. Just a baby in a blanket with Susan written on a piece of paper. Jimmy's expression grew serious as he realized the weight of what they were about to do. "And you've been searching ever since?" he asked gently. "Every agency, every database, every new technology that promised answers." The camera caught the determination in Susan's eyes, mixed with years of accumulated hope and disappointment. "I hired private investigators, joined every ancestry website, even went back to Chicago 6 times. Nothing. But this test is different," she continued, holding up the envelope. "They said if any blood relatives have ever taken a DNA test anywhere, this will find them." Her voice cracked slightly on the word relatives. Jimmy looked at the envelope, then at Susan, understanding that this wasn't just entertainment anymore. "Are you ready to open it?" he asked softly. The studio fell completely silent, except for the distant hum of cameras. Susan nodded and carefully tore open the envelope with shaking fingers. She pulled out several pages of dense genetic information. "I can't make sense of all these numbers and percentages," she admitted. Jimmy moved from behind his desk to sit in the chair next to her. "Let's look together," he said, taking one page while she held another. "What does it say about matches?" Susan scanned the page, her eyes moving rapidly across columns of data. Suddenly, her face went white, and she stopped breathing. "Jimmy," she whispered, "there's a name here." The camera zoomed in on the paper as Jimmy read over her shoulder. "It says close family match, estimated relationship, sibling," he read aloud. "Lisa Marie Thompson, 47 years old, Chicago, Illinois." Susan's hands began shaking violently. "A sibling," she repeated, as if the words were foreign. "I have a sister." The studio audience began murmuring with excitement, but Jimmy raised his hand for silence. "Susan, how does it feel to see that?" he asked gently. "Terrifying," she admitted through tears that were starting to fall. "What if she doesn't want to meet me? What if our parents didn't want me but kept her?" Jimmy reached over and squeezed her hand. "Or, what if she's been looking for you too?" he suggested. The hope in Susan's eyes flickered to life at his words. "The report says she submitted her DNA 6 months ago," Susan read, her voice getting stronger. 6 months ago, Jimmy. She might be looking for family too. That's when something unprecedented happened. From the middle section of the audience, a woman slowly stood up. The cameras hadn't noticed her before, but now everyone turned to look. She was a petite woman with graying brown hair, wearing a simple blue dress. Her hands were pressed to her mouth in shock as she stared at Susan on stage. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice cutting through the studio silence. "Did you just say Lisa Marie Thompson from Chicago?" The entire studio turned to look at her. Susan's head snapped toward the voice. "Yes," she called back, standing up from her chair. "Do you know her?" The woman in the audience began walking toward the stage, moving past other audience members who instinctively made way. "I am Lisa Marie Thompson," she said, her voice growing stronger with each step. The studio exploded in gasps and exclamations. Jimmy's mouth fell open as he realized what was happening. This wasn't planned, wasn't scripted, wasn't anything anyone could have prepared for. "I came to the show tonight because I love watching people find happiness," Lisa continued, now standing at the foot of the stage. "I never thought I'd find mine here." Susan was frozen in place, staring at this stranger who might be her sister. "Lisa," she whispered into her microphone, "you submitted DNA looking for family?" "I've been looking for you for 47 years, Lisa replied, tears streaming down her face. "I was 3 when our parents told me I had a baby sister who went to heaven. I never believed them." The audience was completely silent, except for the sounds of people crying. Jimmy stood up slowly, understanding that he was witnessing something beyond television. "They told you she died?" Susan asked, her voice breaking. "They told you I died?" The pain in her voice carried across the studio like a physical force. Lisa nodded, unable to speak. She climbed the steps to the stage with Jimmy's help, moving towards Susan like she was approaching a miracle. "I used to pray every night that you were alive somewhere," Lisa whispered when she reached Susan. "I used to imagine what you looked like, what your voice sounded like." The two women stood 3 feet apart, studying each other's faces with an intensity that made everyone watching hold their breath. "You have Mom's eyes," Lisa whispered. "I remember her eyes." Susan reached out tentatively and touched Lisa's face. "You look just like me," she said in wonder. "We have the same nose, the same chin." That's when they fell into each other's arms, sobbing with 50 years of grief and joy colliding in one moment. The studio audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Jimmy stepped back to give them space, wiping his own eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into his microphone, "we just witnessed a miracle." The cameras captured every moment as the sisters held each other, whispering words only they could hear. "I never stopped looking," Susan sobbed. "I always knew you were out there somewhere." "I felt it too," Lisa replied. "Every birthday, every Christmas, I felt like someone was missing. Now I know why." Jimmy approached them gently after several minutes. "Lisa, can you tell us how you ended up here tonight?" he asked softly. Lisa pulled back from Susan but kept holding her hands. "I bought the ticket 3 months ago, right after I submitted my DNA test. I thought maybe if I put myself out in the world, the universe would help me find my family." "And Susan," Jimmy continued, "you said this was your last chance. What made you decide to do this on television?" "I figured if I was going to get bad news, I might as well get it in front of people who could remind me that I'm not alone," Susan replied, squeezing Lisa's hands. "I never imagined this." Jimmy turned to address the camera directly. "I've been doing this job for years, and I've seen a lot of amazing things, but what we just witnessed, this isn't television. This is proof that family finds a way." The sisters stood together, still holding hands, as Jimmy continued. "Susan and Lisa, you've been separated for 50 years, but you ended up in the same room on the same night. That's not coincidence. That's love," Susan added, looking at her sister. "Love that was strong enough to wait 50 years and smart enough to bring us both here tonight." The show ended with the sisters sitting together, sharing photos on their phones and filling in 50 years of missing pieces. The cameras caught Lisa showing Susan pictures of their parents' graves, where she'd been leaving flowers for both her parents and her angel sister for decades. 3 months later, Susan moved to Chicago to be closer to Lisa. They discovered they lived just 12 miles apart for the past 15 years, had shopped at the same grocery store, had even been to the same movies on the same nights. The DNA company featured their story in a national campaign about the power of genetic testing. But more importantly, their reunion inspired thousands of other adoptees and separated families to take DNA tests. Jimmy kept in touch with both sisters, featuring updates on their relationship during his anniversary shows. Last year, he announced that Susan was walking Lisa down the aisle at her wedding, the family she'd always dreamed of witnessing her happiest moments. The envelope that started it all sits framed in Susan's living room, next to a photo of her and Lisa as children that Lisa's adoptive parents had kept. Because sometimes the most important discoveries aren't planned, they're simply meant to be. Family isn't just about blood or genetics or shared DNA. Sometimes it's about two hearts that recognize each other across 50 years of separation and know, without question, that they've finally come home.